She said, I am the queen of this family. Address me as such. I refused. At the next dinner, she sat in silence, ignoring me completely. My wife whispered, just say queen, and everything will be better. Look, I thought I'd seen everything when it comes to difficult in-laws. My buddy Marcus deals with a father-in-law who insists on arm wrestling every male visitor. My cousin Jake's mother-in-law rearranges his furniture every time she visits. But this was something else entirely. It started innocently enough. Sarah and I had been married for about 8 months when her mother, Delilah, made what I initially thought was a joke. We were at their family's Sunday dinner. You know, the kind where everyone shows up with a side dish and pretends to enjoy Aunt Beverly's mysterious casserole that tastes like disappointment mixed with too much paprika. I was helping clear the table when Delilah pulled me aside. She's one of those women who wears statement jewelry that clanks when she moves and always smells like expensive perfume mixed with judgment. Benjamin, she said, using my full name like I was 12 and had broken something valuable. I think it's time we establish some ground rules. Ground rules? I asked, genuinely confused. I mean, I thought I was doing okay. I showed up on time, brought wine, complimented her cooking even when it was questionable, and I'd never once mentioned how she'd baby-talked to their 15-year-old cat. Yes, she said, straightening her shoulders like she was about to deliver a speech at the United Nations. I am the matriarch of this family, the queen, if you will, and I expect to be addressed with the respect that title deserves. I laughed. I actually laughed because I thought she was kidding. Oh, okay, Your Majesty, I said with a grin, giving her a little mock bow. Her face went stone cold. I'm not joking, Benjamin. The room seemed to freeze. Sarah was in the kitchen, completely oblivious to this bizarre conversation happening in the dining room. Uncle Pete was arguing with Sarah's brother Danny about some football trade, and the kids were running around with sticky fingers and chocolate-stained shirts. Normal family chaos. But here I was, trapped in what felt like a fever dream. You want me to actually call you queen? I asked, hoping I'd misunderstood something fundamental about this conversation. Queen Delilah, yes. It's not too much to ask for a little recognition of my position in this family. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, processing this request. This wasn't about respect, this was about power. And I could feel something in my gut telling me that if I gave in to this, it would only be the beginning. I respect you, I said carefully. But I'm not going to call you queen. That's not how I operate. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Delilah's eyes narrowed, and she gave me a smile that could have frozen hell over. I see, she said. Well, Benjamin, I suppose we'll see how that works out for you. The rest of that evening was tense, but manageable. Delilah didn't say much to me, but she wasn't openly hostile either. I figured maybe she'd let it go, chalk it up to a weird moment, and move on. Sarah and I drove home that night, and she seemed completely normal, chatting about her cousin's new job and laughing about how Uncle Pete had spilled gravy on his shirt. I didn't mention the conversation. Part of me hoped it would just disappear if I ignored it. 2 weeks later, we had another family gathering. This time it was for Sarah's nephew's birthday party. 8-year-old Tyler was having a superhero-themed party in their backyard, complete with a bounce house and enough sugar to power a small city. I walked in carrying a gift bag and immediately noticed something was off. Delilah was there, of course, holding court near the refreshment table in a flowing purple dress that made her look like she was cosplaying as actual royalty. But when I approached to say hello, she looked right through me like I was invisible. Hi, Delilah, I said, keeping my voice friendly and normal. Nothing. She continued her conversation with Sarah's aunt like I hadn't spoken at all. I tried again. The party looks great. Tyler must be thrilled. Still nothing. It was like I was a ghost. Sarah noticed and came over, looking confused. Mom, Ben was talking to you, she said. Delilah turned to Sarah with a bright smile. Oh, honey, I didn't realize anyone was speaking to me. I must not have heard properly. Sarah looked between us, clearly sensing something was wrong, but not understanding what. Maybe the music's too loud, she suggested weakly. This continued for the entire party. Delilah would talk to everyone else. She cooed over Tyler's superhero costume, complimented the other parents on their kids, even had a lengthy conversation with the teenager they'd hired to help with the party setup. But me? I might as well have been furniture. At one point, I was standing right next to her when someone asked where the napkins were. Oh, they're right there, she said, pointing directly past me to the table behind us. The woman asking had to reach around me to get them, and Delilah acted like I wasn't there at all. It was maddening. And what made it worse was that Sarah was starting to notice, and I could see her getting stressed. She kept trying to include me in conversations with her mother, and each time Delilah would find a way to respond to Sarah without acknowledging my existence. Finally, about halfway through the party, Sarah pulled me aside behind the garage. "What's going on with you and Mom?" she asked, her voice tight with worry. "I honestly don't know." I lied, because how do you explain that your mother-in-law wants to be called Queen without sounding completely insane? "She's acting like you're not even there. Did you guys have a fight or something?" I looked at my wife, this woman I loved more than anything, who was clearly distressed by the tension between her mother and her husband, and I felt something crack inside my chest. Sarah was caught in the middle of something she didn't understand, and it wasn't fair to her. "Your mom and I had a disagreement about something a couple weeks ago," I said finally. "What kind of disagreement?" Before I could answer, we heard Delilah's voice from around the corner. She was talking to Sarah's sister Emma, but her voice was pitched just loud enough that I was clearly meant to overhear. "I just think it's so important for people to show proper respect in a family setting," she was saying. "Some people understand family hierarchy, and others, well, others need to learn their place." Sarah's eyes widened. "Oh my God, Ben, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything wrong," I said, and I meant it. "Your mother asked me to call her Queen, and I said no." Sarah stared at me for a long moment. "Queen? Queen Delilah, to be exact." "You're joking." "I wish I were." Sarah ran her hands through her hair, leaving little flyaways sticking up. It was something she did when she was overwhelmed, and seeing it made my heart hurt. "This is insane," she whispered. "I know. But Ben." She looked toward the party, where we could hear Tyler shrieking with delight about something. "Maybe you could just, for family peace." And there it was. The moment I'd been dreading since this whole thing started. My wife, my partner, my best friend, the person who was supposed to have my back, was asking me to give in. "Sarah, if I start calling your mother Queen, where does it end? What's the next thing she's going to demand?" "It's just a word, Ben." "No, it's not. It's about power and control, and if I give her this, she's going to know she can push me around whenever she wants." Sarah was quiet for a long time, and I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head. Finally, she said, "She's my mother, Ben, and she's not going to be around forever. That's not the point. Isn't it, though? Is this really the hill you want to die on?" We went back to the party after that, but the rest of the afternoon felt like walking through quicksand. Every interaction was strained and weird. Delilah continued to pretend I didn't exist, and Sarah kept overcompensating by being overly cheerful and trying to force conversations between her mother and me. The drive home was silent except for the radio playing some country song about heartbreak and bad decisions. Update 1. Well, things escalated quickly. And by quickly, I mean it's been 3 months of absolute hell, and I'm starting to question my own sanity. After the birthday party incident, I thought maybe Delilah would get tired of her little power play and things would go back to normal. I was wrong. So wrong. The silent treatment continued, but it got more creative. And somehow, more humiliating. At Sarah's cousin's wedding last month, Delilah managed to arrange the seating so that there was literally an empty chair between her and me at the family table. When people asked about it, she would say, "Oh, we're saving that seat for someone important," and then look directly at me with a smile that could cut glass. During the reception, the DJ asked all the married couples to come to the dance floor. Sarah grabbed my hand, excited because we both love to dance, and it's one of our things. But as we walked out there, I heard Delilah's voice behind us, loud enough for half the reception to hear. "It's so nice when couples can find happiness, even when one person doesn't understand their place in the family structure." Sarah stumbled a little, and I saw her face go bright red. We danced, but the magic was gone. Every spin, every dip, I could feel eyes on us and hear the whispers starting. But the worst part? Sarah's family was starting to take sides. Her brother Danny pulled me aside at the wedding and said, "Dude, just call her Queen. It's not that big a deal, and you're making Mom miserable." "I'm making her miserable." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Look, I get it. It's weird, but she's always been dramatic about stuff like this. Remember when Emma's ex-boyfriend refused to take his shoes off in the house? Mom didn't speak to him for 6 months until he apologized. That's completely different. Is it though? Danny shrugged. Mom likes respect. Maybe she's going about it the wrong way, but she's not asking you to sacrifice your firstborn child. She just wants you to call her queen at family stuff. Pick your battles, man. That's when I realized I was completely alone in this. Even Sarah's sister Emma, who I'd always gotten along with great, was giving me the cold shoulder. At the wedding, she came up to me during cocktail hour and said, "You know, Ben, pride goes before a fall." What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you should think about what's more important, being right or being part of this family. The crazy part is that I started to wonder if they were right. Was I being stubborn and prideful? Was I making a mountain out of a molehill? Then came the family barbecue from hell. It was supposed to be a casual thing. Uncle Pete's birthday, grilling in the backyard, kids running around with sparklers, even though it wasn't close to the 4th of July. I thought maybe in a more relaxed setting, things might be better. I was wrong. I walked in carrying a 6-pack of Uncle Pete's favorite beer and a chocolate cake Sarah had made. Delilah was standing by the grill, talking to Pete about something, and when she saw me, she did something I'll never forget. She literally stepped aside and gestured like she was presenting me to Pete, and said, "Peter, I believe you know Sarah's companion." Companion? Like I was her pet or something. Uncle Pete looked confused. Yeah, that's Ben, Sarah's husband." "Of course," Delilah said with that same icy smile. I sometimes forget the proper terminology. The whole afternoon was like that. Every time someone referred to me as Sarah's husband or tried to include me in family conversations, Delilah would find subtle ways to undermine it. When someone asked about our honeymoon, she interrupted with a story about Sarah's college friends. When Pete wanted to know my opinion about the new grill he was thinking of buying, Delilah suddenly needed Sarah to help her with something inside. But the breaking point came when little Tyler, the birthday boy from a few months back, ran up to me with a drawing he'd made of our family. It was one of those adorable kid drawings with stick figures and a house that looked like it was about to fall over. He'd drawn me and Sarah holding hands, and he'd given me a cape because he remembered I liked superheroes. "Look, Uncle Ben," he said, showing me the picture with huge pride. "I drew you and Aunt Sarah." I was genuinely touched. This kid barely knew me, but he'd included me in his picture of the family. I knelt down to his level and said, "Tyler, this is amazing. You're a really good artist." That's when Delilah appeared like some kind of vengeful spirit. "Tyler, sweetie," she said in that fake sweet voice adults use when they're about to correct a child. "Uncle Ben isn't really your uncle, remember? He's just someone who comes to our family parties sometimes." Tyler looked confused. "But Aunt Sarah is married to him." "Yes, dear, but that doesn't make him family. Family is something you're born into." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. This woman was using an 8-year-old to hurt me. An 8-year-old who just wanted to show off his drawing. Sarah wasn't there. She was inside helping with something, so she didn't see what happened next. Tyler's face crumpled a little, and he looked between me and Delilah like he wasn't sure who to believe. "Tyler," I said, my voice probably shakier than it should have been. "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable, okay?" Delilah smiled triumphantly, and Tyler wandered off, looking confused and clutching his drawing. That night, Sarah and I had our first real fight about the whole situation. She told Tyler I wasn't family. I said as soon as we got in the car. "What?" I told her what happened, and I watched Sarah's face go through about 15 different emotions. Finally, she said, "Ben, she was probably just. Maybe she didn't mean it like that. How else could she have meant it? I don't know, but Mom wouldn't deliberately hurt a child to get back at you. Wouldn't she?" Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "This has to stop." "I agree. So you'll talk to her? Apologize." I stared at her. "Apologize for what? For refusing to call your mother queen? For not bowing down to her ridiculous power trip? For making this such a big deal? For letting it get this far? I didn't let anything get anywhere, Sarah. Your mother is the one who." "Just stop." Sarah's voice cracked, and I realized she was crying. "I can't do this anymore, Ben. I can't be in the middle of this fight between you and my mother. It's tearing me apart." "Then don't be in the middle. Tell your mother to stop acting like a child. She's my mother. I can't just." Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Why can't you just say the word? It's just a word, Ben. Queen. 5 letters. Is your pride really worth all this?" And that's when I realized that Sarah didn't get it. She didn't understand that this wasn't about pride or stubbornness. This was about the fact that her mother was trying to establish dominance over me, and if I gave in, there would be no end to it. It's not about pride, I said quietly. It's about respect. And your mother doesn't respect me. She will if you show her the respect she's asking for. No, Sarah. She won't. She'll just find something else to demand. We drove the rest of the way home in silence. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if our marriage was going to survive it. Update 2. I never thought I'd be back here writing another update. But holy shit, you guys. Things went completely off the rails, and I honestly don't know whether to laugh or cry about what happened. So it's been another 2 months since my last update, and the situation had somehow gotten even worse. Delilah's silent treatment had evolved into something I can only describe as psychological warfare. She started forgetting to invite me to family events, then acting surprised when Sarah showed up alone. "Oh," she'd say, with fake concern dripping from every word. I thought Ben was busy with whatever it is he does with his time. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago at Sarah's grandmother's 90th birthday party. This was a big deal. The whole extended family was going to be there, people flying in from different states, the works. Sarah's grandmother, Nana Rose, is this tiny woman who still makes her own bread and tells stories about dancing during World War II. She's basically the family treasure, and everyone adores her. I was actually looking forward to it because Nana Rose had always been kind to me. She's one of those old-school women who judges people by their actions, not their politics or their willingness to participate in weird power games. But I should have known Delilah wouldn't let this opportunity pass. The party was at a rented hall, one of those places with round tables and a small dance floor that smells like decades of celebrations. I walked in with Sarah, carrying the photo album we'd put together of Nana Rose's favorite family memories, and immediately noticed that Delilah had positioned herself at the entrance like some kind of receiving line. "Sarah, darling," she exclaimed, pulling my wife into a dramatic hug. "You look absolutely beautiful. And you brought." She looked at me with exaggerated confusion. "I'm sorry, I don't believe we've been properly introduced." Sarah's face went white. "Mom, stop." "Stop what, dear?" "I'm simply trying to be polite to Sarah's friend? Date? I'm not sure of the proper protocol here." There were people everywhere. Cousins I'd met at our wedding, aunts and uncles who had danced at our reception, family friends who had congratulated us on our marriage. And Delilah was standing there pretending she didn't know who I was. "Delilah," I said, my voice steady despite the fact that I wanted to scream, "you know exactly who I am." "Oh," she snapped her fingers like she'd just remembered something. "You're the young man who doesn't understand family hierarchy. Forgive me. I have such trouble remembering people who don't show proper respect." That's when Nana Rose appeared at my elbow like a tiny, gray-haired ninja. "Delilah Marie," she said in a voice that could have cut steel, "what in the Sam Hill is wrong with you?" You could have heard a pin drop. Delilah's face went through several shades of red before settling on a color I can only describe as mortified pink. "Mother Rose, You were just making a fool of yourself at my birthday party," Nana Rose said. She turned to me with a warm smile. "Ben, honey, you look handsome as always. How are you settling into married life?" "I'm good, Nana Rose. Thank you for asking." "Good. Sarah, your husband looks like he could use a drink. Why don't you two go find the bar while I have a word with your mother?" We basically fled to the other side of the room, but I could see Nana Rose talking to Delilah in that intense way that grandmothers have when they're about to lay down the law. Delilah's face kept getting redder, and she kept glancing over at us like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "What do you think she's saying?" Sarah whispered. "Probably telling your mother to knock it off." "God, I hope so. I'm so embarrassed, Ben. I can't believe she did that in front of everyone." For a few minutes, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe Nana Rose had talked sense into Delilah, and we could finally put this ridiculous situation behind us. I was wrong again. About an hour into the party, during the speeches and toasts, Delilah asked for the microphone. She stood up at the head table, looking regal in a navy blue dress that probably cost more than my car payment, and smiled at the room full of family. "I wanted to say something about respect," she began, and my stomach immediately dropped. "About the importance of understanding one's place in the family structure." Sarah grabbed my hand under the table, her fingers ice cold. "My mother taught me that respect isn't given, it's earned, and that sometimes we have to stand up for our principles, even when it's difficult." The room was uncomfortably quiet. People were looking around at each other, clearly sensing that something was happening, but not understanding what. "So, I'd like to propose a toast," Delilah continued, raising her champagne glass. To family, to respect, and to those who understand the importance of both. She looked directly at me when she said this, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. That's when Nana Rose stood up. At 90 years old, she's maybe 5 feet tall on a good day, but when she stood up at that moment, she looked like a giant. She walked over to where Delilah was standing, took the microphone out of her hands, and said, "Sit down, Delilah. You're done." The room was dead silent. Nana Rose looked out at all of us, 3 generations of family, plus friends and neighbors who had come to celebrate with her, and she smiled. 90 years on this earth has taught me a lot of things, she said, her voice carrying easily through the room, even though she wasn't speaking loudly. But the most important thing I've learned is that family isn't about power. It's not about who gets to be in charge or who deserves special treatment. Family is about love. It's about support. It's about showing up for each other when things get tough. She turned to look at Delilah, who was still standing there looking like she'd been slapped. "Delilah, you raised a beautiful daughter who found herself a good man. Ben makes Sarah happy. He shows up to our family events, he's kind to our children, and he treats my granddaughter with love and respect. That makes him family in my book, regardless of whatever foolishness you've got stuck in your head about queens and hierarchy." Then she turned to me. "Ben, I'm sorry you've had to deal with this nonsense. You married into this family, which means you're stuck with all of us, the good, the bad, and the occasionally ridiculous. Welcome to the club." The room erupted in applause and laughter, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in months. But Delilah wasn't done. After the party, she cornered Sarah and me in the parking lot. She was crying, actually crying, which I had never seen before. "This is all your fault," she said to me, her voice shaking. "You've turned my own family against me. My own mother humiliated me in front of everyone because of your stubbornness." "Delilah," I started. "No, I am the mother in this family. I deserve respect. I deserve recognition for everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed. And you just waltz in here and act like I don't matter." And suddenly, I understood. This wasn't really about me at all. This was about a woman who was watching her daughter build a life that didn't revolve around her, and she was terrified of becoming irrelevant. "You do matter," I said quietly. "You matter to Sarah. You matter to your grandchildren. You matter to this family. But you can't demand respect through fear and manipulation. That's not how it works." Delilah stared at me for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she said, I don't want to be forgotten." Sarah stepped forward and hugged her mother. "Mom, you're not going to be forgotten. But you can't keep doing this. It's not fair to Ben, and it's not fair to me." "I know," Delilah whispered. "I know, but I don't know how to stop." That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, things have been different. Not perfect, but different. Delilah still doesn't call me by name very often, but she stopped pretending I don't exist. At Sarah's nephew's soccer game last weekend, she actually asked me if I wanted anything from the concession stand. It's a small thing, but after months of being treated like a ghost, it felt huge. Sarah and I have been talking more openly about her family dynamics, and she's starting to see some patterns that she never noticed before. Apparently, Delilah did something similar to Emma's husband when they first got married. Not the queen thing, but a different power play about family traditions. "I think Mom gets scared when she feels like she's losing control," Sarah said last night as we were getting ready for bed. "It doesn't excuse what she did, but maybe it explains it a little." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm glad I didn't give in." "Me too," Sarah said, and I could tell she meant it. "I was so focused on keeping the peace that I wasn't really thinking about what she was asking you to do. It was crazy." "So no regrets about not calling her queen?" Sarah laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from her in months. "God, no. Can you imagine if you had? She probably would have asked you to bow next. We're taking things one family gathering at a time." Delilah still has her moments. Last Sunday, she made a comment about how some people don't appreciate home-cooked meals when I didn't take seconds of her casserole. But the all-out warfare seems to be over. And honestly, I think Nana Rose scared her straight. There's nothing quite like being publicly called out by a 90-year-old woman to put things in perspective. I still don't call her queen, and I never will. But I do call her Delilah now, instead of avoiding her name altogether, and she responds when I talk to her. It's not warm and fuzzy, but it's functional. Sometimes that's enough. The whole experience taught me something important about marriage. That sometimes you have to fight for your relationship, even when it's uncomfortable. even when the people you love are asking you to just give in for the sake of peace. Because if you don't establish boundaries early, you'll spend the rest of your life being pushed around by people who mistake kindness for weakness. Sarah and I are stronger now than we were before this whole thing started. We learned how to have difficult conversations, how to support each other when outside pressure gets intense, and how to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate our relationship. And Nana Rose? She's officially my favorite person in the family. She sent me a birthday card last week with a note that said, "Thanks for not calling my daughter Queen. The only royalty in this family is me." I'm keeping that card forever. Final update. Well, I promised I'd update you all one more time if anything major happened, and boy, did it ever. It's been 6 months since Nana Rose's birthday party showdown, and I thought things were settling into a new normal. Delilah and I had reached what I'd call a cold peace. We were civil to each other, she acknowledged my existence, and family gatherings were no longer exercises in psychological warfare. Then last month, everything changed again. Sarah and I announced that we're expecting our first child. I was nervous about how Delilah would react to the news. Would she try to use the baby as leverage for more power plays? Would she demand some special grandmother title that I'd have to refuse? I'd been preparing myself for another battle. Instead, something completely unexpected happened. We told the family at Sunday dinner, and Delilah just started crying. Not angry crying, not manipulative crying, genuine, happy tears. She got up from her chair, walked over to me, and hugged me. Actually hugged me. "I'm going to be a grandmother," she whispered. And for the first time since I'd known her, she sounded like a regular person instead of someone playing a role. "You're going to be a great grandmother," I said, and I meant it. Whatever her issues with me were, I'd seen her with Tyler and the other kids in the family. She loves children. "Benjamin," she said, pulling back to look at me, "I owe you an apology." I nearly fell over. "You do?" I've been thinking a lot about what Mother Rose said at the party, about what family really means. And I realized that I was so worried about losing my place in Sarah's life that I forgot the most important thing, making sure she was happy. She wiped her eyes with a napkin, smearing her makeup a little. "You make my daughter happy. I can see it in the way she smiles when she talks about you, in the way she lights up when you walk into a room. And I almost ruined that because of my own issues." "Delilah, let me finish," she said. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I put you through hell for almost a year because I was scared and acting like a child. But I want you to know that I'm grateful you didn't give in to my ridiculous demands. If you had, I probably would have kept pushing until I destroyed your marriage to my daughter." The whole family was watching this conversation with fascination. Sarah was crying too, and even Uncle Pete looked like he might tear up. "I know I can't take back what I did," Delilah continued, "but I'd like to try to do better, if you'll let me." "Of course," I said. "We're family." She smiled at that. A real smile, not the sharp-edged one I'd gotten used to. "Yes, we are." Since then, it's been like dealing with a completely different person. Delilah asks about my work, remembers details about my life, and actually seems interested in my opinions about things. She's excited about the baby in a way that feels genuine rather than performative. Last week, she even asked me to help her set up her new tablet, and we spent an afternoon figuring out how to video call and looking at baby stuff online. It was nice. Normal. The kind of interaction I'd hoped we'd have from the beginning. Sarah keeps saying it's like her mother woke up from some kind of spell. "I think becoming a grandmother shifted something in her perspective," she said. Like she realized there are more important things than whatever power struggle she thought she was fighting. I think there's truth to that. But I also think Nana Rose's public calling out really affected her. Sometimes people need to see themselves through other people's eyes to understand how they're behaving. The really wild part? Last Sunday, Delilah actually thanked me for standing my ground. I was talking to my friend Margaret about everything that happened, she said as we were cleaning up after dinner. And she told me about her son-in-law who just goes along with whatever she says. She said it drives her crazy because she never knows what he really thinks about anything. "Okay," I said, not sure where this was going. "The point is, Benjamin, that you showed me who you really are. You have principles, and you stick to them even when it's difficult. That's exactly the kind of man I want married to my daughter and raising my grandchildren." It's funny how life works out sometimes. The thing that almost destroyed our relationship, my refusal to call her Queen, ended up being what she respected most about me. Don't get me wrong, we're not best friends or anything. We probably never will be. But we're family now in a way that feels real rather than obligatory. She calls me Ben instead of Benjamin, asks my opinion about things, and even laughs at my jokes sometimes. And the best part? Sarah is happier than I've seen her in years. The stress of being caught between her mother and her husband is gone, and she can just enjoy both relationships without feeling like she has to choose sides. Our baby is due in 4 months, and Delilah has already started knitting blankets and booties. She's also made it clear that she plans to be very involved as a grandmother, but in a supportive way rather than a controlling one. I want to be the kind of grandmother who helps, not the kind who interferes, she told Sarah and me last week. And if I start getting out of line, I give you both permission to tell me to back off. So that's where things stand now. The Queen saga is officially over, and frankly, I'm glad I never gave in to her demand. Not because I was trying to win some kind of power struggle, but because standing my ground forced us to have real conversations about respect and family dynamics. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a relationship is refuse to participate in the unhealthy parts of it, even when it's uncomfortable, even when people you love are asking you to just go along to get along. I learned that marriage isn't just about loving someone. It's about protecting your relationship from people who would damage it, even when those people are family. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their worst impulses. Delilah needed someone to stand up to her, even though she didn't realize it at the time. And our family is stronger now because of it.